So we've been on another documentary kick lately, and we were watching one last night about this little girl who was chronically ill, but her parents and primary care doctor, despite trying, could not figure out what was wrong with her. And so the mom and dad started taking this little girl from hospital to hospital without much diagnostic success until they got to a couple really prestigious hospitals, both of which began to suspect that these parents might be over-medicalizing their daughter, right? Which means this might be a case of what they call Munchausen by proxy. Maybe you know about these cases. There's a bunch of documentaries and shows on it. The most famous being the one about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. But if you don't know about Munchausen by proxy, here's what it is. It happens when parents, typically mothers, because of their unresolved childhood trauma and codependency, which we now know is driven by emotional repression, basically brainwash their kids into believing that they're sick or that there's something wrong with them, right? Sometimes so effectively that the kid, who of course is dependent on the parents, will actually start having symptoms. And so the parents will start shopping doctors trying to find the one that will confirm the delusional diagnosis. So in this particular documentary, the clinicians at these two prestigious hospitals caught on to what was happening with the family, and they requested that the child be separated from the mom and dad. And so when the hospital made this request and told the parents why, they both just went berserk, right? They just regressed like into children. They started saying things like, the hospital wants to kidnap our child and hold her hostage and maybe even kill her, and we're going to the news media about this. I mean, it was wild. Just instant victim consciousness, right? Instead of what you'd think that parents who really cared about their child would do or say in that situation, which would be, wow, maybe we are doing something, right? Maybe we should look at ourselves. Maybe we should, try some therapy. Maybe we are over-medicalizing. But the really fascinating and telling thing to me was that when the little girl was separated from her parents, who, were waging this insane media war against the hospital, two things happened. One was her symptoms settled down and she didn't have any medical emergencies for like the months that she was there in the hospital. And the second was when the little girl was able to occasionally talk to her parents on the phone, or when she received messages from them, which of course said stuff like, are they torturing you in there? That she would play along with it. She would say things like, oh, it's awful here, and I miss my family and I want to go home. And I just thought, if this isn't a perfect example of Stockholm Syndrome, then I don't know what is. This little girl had been so damaged by her parents that it was more preferable to her to suffer along with them than it was for her to get better. And then I thought about myself and everyone else that I've done emotional repression work with, and I thought, well, this is like everyone's experience, really. We all get conditioned to some degree by caregivers or by a culture who are emotionally repressed and suffering to believe things about ourselves, to believe that we're sick, to believe that we're depressed, to believe that we're not good enough, to believe that we're unsafe, to believe that we're addicted, to believe that we're unhealed, to believe that we're a Christian, to believe that we're a Buddhist, to believe that we're a liberal, to believe that we're a conservative, and all in an unconscious attempt to stay safe and get love, right? To get our unmet needs met from whatever powers that be will meet them. It's like Stockholm Syndrome or Munchausen by proxy on like a massive scale. And I'll tell you one thing that I noticed about this little girl in the documentary that I wouldn't have noticed had I not done a lot of emotional repression work. She was pissed, right? She was presenting as smiling and childlike and quiet and helpless, right? But she was so angry. You could see it in her eyes. Because that's the thing about buried repressed emotions. We don't consciously know that they're down there in the body. We don't know that they're creating our surface level personality and mask. We don't know that they're creating our accommodating. We don't know that they're creating our Stockholm Syndrome. We don't know that they're creating our chronic pain. We don't know that they're creating our addiction. We don't know that they're creating our depression. We don't know that they're creating our anxiety. See? If that little girl could have gotten to her buried repressed anger and resolved it, she could have figured out what she wanted, right? Not what her sick parents wanted. She might have even recognized that what she thought was family connection and them loving her was actually cultish trauma bonding. This is how deep this stuff runs. And here's the crazy thing. It's so common. So common. I'm actually really surprised when I meet people who don't deal with it. at least to some degree. So if you know that you are dealing with it and you'd like to do some emotional repression work, hit me up at the link in caption or bio.